Before we talk specifically about the 1983 D penny, let's take a quick step back and talk about the history of the 1-cent coin. The penny, also known as the Lincoln cent, was first introduced in 1909 to honor the 16th President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln. Since then, the design has evolved, but the profile of Abraham Lincoln has remained on the front of the coin. In 1959, the reverse design was changed to show the Lincoln Memorial, which would remain the reverse design on the penny until 2008. But by the time we reached 1983, the penny was already well into its decades-long existence, and the coin had become a crucial part of the American economy. Now, let's fast forward to 1983. The 1983 D penny, minted in Denver, is notable for several reasons. First, it was part of a unique moment in U.S. coin history. The penny was undergoing a major change. In 1982, the U.S. Mint made a huge decision. They changed the composition of the penny. For the first time, the penny was no longer made of pure copper but was instead made of a copper-plated zinc alloy. This change was made to reduce costs, as copper prices were rising. So, in 1983, the penny struck in Denver, with the D mint mark, was made using this new copper-plated zinc formula. This made the 1983 D penny unique, as it was the first year of the new alloy formula. You see, before 1982, pennies were primarily made from copper, but starting in 1983, the U.S. Mint switched to a composition that was primarily zinc with a thin copper coating, weighing only about 2.5 grams as opposed to the previous 3.1 grams. While this change made the coin lighter and cheaper to produce, it also raised some interesting questions about its long-term durability. Now you might be thinking, okay, so the 1983 D penny is just another penny, right? Well, not exactly. While most of the 1983 D pennies are still in circulation today and are worth just 1 cent, there are some rare versions of this coin that can be worth a lot more to collectors. One of the most intriguing things about the 1983 D penny is that a few very rare examples have been found with major minting errors. The most notable of these errors is the 1983 D double die penny. A double die error occurs when the coin is struck more than once, causing the design to appear doubled. In the case of the 1983 D penny, the doubling is most often visible in the letters of the word Liberty on the obverse of the coin, or the date itself. This is an extremely rare mistake, and if you happen to find one of these error pennies in your pocket change, it could be worth quite a lot. But where things get interesting is with the error coins. A 1983 D double die penny can be worth anywhere from a few $100s to several $1,000s. The value of these rare error coins really depends on how clearly the doubling appears and what condition the coin is in. Let's dive a bit deeper into these rare error pennies, because the value of a 1983 D double die penny can really skyrocket. A well-preserved 1983 D double die penny, in what collectors call uncirculated condition, can sometimes fetch prices of over $1,000 at auction. Some of the most extreme cases have seen these pennies sell for even higher amounts. In fact, one 1983 D double die penny was sold for over $2,000 at a major coin auction. While these coins are incredibly rare, the high demand from collectors has driven their value through the roof. So, how do you know if you have a 1983 D double die penny? Well, here are a few things to look out for. First, inspect the obverse of the coin, particularly the word Liberty and the date 1983. If you notice that the letters look thicker or doubled in certain spots, that could be a sign that you have a double die penny. The doubling is usually visible on the left side of the letters, making them appear almost as if there's a shadow or a second set of lines. Also, take a look at the date itself. If you see that the 3 or the 8 has been struck multiple times, that's another telltale sign that you might be holding a valuable coin. So, what makes the 1983 D penny so significant in the world of collecting? Well, this coin is a great example of how a seemingly ordinary, everyday coin can become valuable due to errors and historical changes. Collectors love to track down these rare error coins because they add to the richness of the coin's story. And the 1983 D penny is part of a larger trend of interest in U.S. mint errors. Collectors of all experience levels find it exciting to hunt for coins that didn't make it through the minting process perfectly. The search for these errors is part of what makes coin collecting so thrilling. Now, let's talk about the future of the penny. With inflation rising and the cost of production continuing to increase, many people are questioning whether the US Mint will continue making pennies in the years to come. While there's been talk about phasing out the penny, for now, the 1983 D-penny remains an important piece of history. Whether or not pennies continue to be minted, the 1983 D-penny will always hold a special place in numismatic history, particularly for era collectors. So, to sum it all up, the 1983 D-penny may seem like just another penny, but if you look closely, it could be hiding a valuable era worth hundreds, or even thousands of dollars. The history behind this coin and its significance in coin collecting is truly fascinating. So, next time you come across a 1983 D-penny, take a moment to check for errors. It could be worth more than you think. First, let's set the scene. The 1993 penny belongs to a series of Lincoln cents that have been in circulation since 1909. But before we talk about the specific design and significance of the 1993 penny, let's take a quick look at how the penny itself came to be. As most of you probably know, the U.S. Mint first introduced the Lincoln cent in 1909, honoring the 16th President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln. The coin's obverse features Lincoln's profile, and it's been a staple of American currency for over a century. In 1959, the reverse design changed to the Lincoln Memorial, and that design remained in circulation until 2008. But in 2009, to mark the 200th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, the U.S. Mint began releasing special reverse designs celebrating key moments in Lincoln's life. However, in 1993, the penny was still using the traditional Lincoln Memorial reverse design. Now, let's zoom in on the 1993 penny specifically. The penny from 1993 has a very familiar design. On the obverse, you'll see the profile of Abraham Lincoln, which has been unchanged for decades. But what sets the 1993 penny apart from other years is its reverse. Now that we've taken a closer look at the design, let's talk about the historical context and the role the 1993 penny played in circulation. In 1993, the U.S. economy was in the midst of a significant transition. In the early 90s, the United States was experiencing economic growth. The country was coming out of the 1990 to 1991 recession, and the economy was beginning to thrive again. The penny, though low in value, continued to circulate alongside the growing use of credit cards and digital payment systems. The 1993 penny was produced in massive quantities. In fact, the U.S. Mint struck over 7.5 billion pennies that year, which was about the average for the early 90s. This shows that the penny was still widely used in everyday transactions, despite the rise of electronic payments. So, let's talk about the value of the 1993 penny today. The truth is, a regular 1993 penny isn't worth much more than its face value of 1 cent. You can easily find them in your pocket change or in a jar collecting dust in your home. Despite the fact that the 1993 penny is not rare, there are still some interesting factors to consider when talking about its value. You see, while it may not fetch a lot of money on its own, certain factors can make it more valuable to collectors. While the 1993 penny itself may not be worth much, certain rare varieties and errors can make a penny from that year worth thousands of dollars. Let me explain. First, error coins are a huge part of numismatics. For example, if a penny from 1993 has a misprint, a doubled die, or any other mistake in its minting process, it could be worth significantly more than 1 cent. Some 1993 pennies with errors have been known to sell for hundreds or even thousands of dollars, depending on the severity of the error and the condition of the coin. One of the most sought-after types of error coins is a double-dyed penny, where the design has been struck more than once, causing a doubling effect. There have been some very rare examples of these error pennies from 1993 that have sold for hundreds or even thousands of dollars. Aside from rare errors, the 1993 penny is part of the larger collection of Lincoln cents. These pennies, though still produced in large quantities, hold a special place in collectors' hearts. Many collectors focus on completing sets of Lincoln cents, and the 1993 penny is part of that effort. For serious numismatists, having a full set of Lincoln cents, from the 1909 VDB penny to the 1993 penny and beyond, is a sought-after achievement. The value of a well-preserved 1993 penny can also increase as part of a larger collection, especially if it's graded highly by the numismatic community. Now, let's take a step back and think about the future of the penny. While it's still in circulation today, the U.S. Mint has been making fewer pennies in recent years. There's been an ongoing debate about whether we should continue producing pennies or eliminate them altogether due to the rising cost of production. Despite this, the penny holds a special place in American history. It's a reminder of Lincoln's legacy and of the changing dynamics of American currency. Whether the penny continues to circulate or eventually becomes obsolete, the 1993 penny, like all pennies, will remain a historical artifact that tells the story of the U.S. economy and coinage. From its production and design to its value in circulation and its worth for collectors, we'll cover it all in today's video. So, stick around. Most of us have held on to a penny or two, and chances are, if you've come across a 1986 penny, you've probably just tossed it back into your pocket change. But did you know that this small coin carries with it a bit of history? Whether you're a seasoned collector or just curious about the pennies in your pocket, this video is for you. Let's get started with the 1986 1-cent coin. The 1986 1-cent coin is part of the series of pennies that were produced after the U.S. Mint made the shift in the early 1980s to use a new composition for the penny. As copper prices rose, the Mint transitioned from the classic copper alloy pennies to a composition of 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper in 1982. This change, while not immediately obvious to the casual observer, made a big impact on the production and cost of the 1-cent coin. In 1986, the U.S. Mint continued producing pennies in this new formula of zinc with a copper coating. This was the standard for all pennies minted in the U.S. after 1982. The 1986 penny, like its predecessors, carried the iconic design of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. The 1986 1-cent coin, however, has some interesting historical context beyond just its composition. In 1986, the U.S. economy was recovering from a period of high inflation in the late 1970s and early 1980s. The Mint had also been faced with the challenge of increasing production costs for coins due to rising metal prices. The penny, as always, remained one of the most common forms of currency in everyday transactions. Let's talk about the design of the 1986 1-cent coin. On the obverse, we see the image of Abraham Lincoln, who has been featured on the penny since 1909. The Lincoln portrait was designed by Victor David Brenner and has been a symbol of U.S. history for over a century. This portrait is framed by the inscription Liberty, the date 1986, and the phrase In God We Trust. Over the years, the design has remained largely unchanged, with only minor adjustments. It's one of the most enduring images in U.S. coinage history. On the reverse of the 1986 penny, we see the iconic Lincoln Memorial, which has been featured since 1959. The design was created by Frank Gasparo and shows a view of the memorial from the west side. Above the memorial, we see the words E Pluribus Unum and beneath it, 1 cent along with United States of America. While the design itself hasn't changed since the 1950s, it holds significant historical value. For many Americans, the Lincoln Memorial represents both the legacy of Lincoln and the core principles of freedom and unity that the U.S. was founded upon. In 1986, the U.S. Mint produced a total of 7.6 billion pennies, a staggering number that reflects the penny's role as the most commonly circulated coin in America. And if you have a 1986 penny in your change today, chances are it's still in good condition. They were minted in large quantities and widely distributed. Most 1986 pennies, regardless of their condition, are worth exactly 1 cent. That's right, they're worth no more than face value. While it may seem like there's little financial value in these coins, there's still something to be said about their role in our economy. The penny remains an essential part of everyday life, despite discussions over whether it should be phased out. However, just because the 1986 penny is common doesn't mean there isn't more to it. For those who are collecting pennies from specific years or mint marks, the 1986 penny might be of interest. Though it isn't one of the rarest years for pennies, it's part of a collection that represents the final years of the Lincoln Memorial reverse design before the redesign in 2009. While most 1986 pennies are ordinary, there are some varieties and error coins that could be worth much more than face value. The most notable type of error you might come across is a struck-through error, where debris or dirt gets in the way during the minting process, leaving a noticeable mark or flaw on the coin. Another type of error you might find is the off-center strike. This happens when the coin is not perfectly aligned during the minting process, resulting in a coin that appears misaligned with its design. Off-center pennies, even from common years like 1986, can be valuable to collectors, especially if the misalignment is dramatic. While these errors are relatively rare, they add significant value to a coin, and a well-preserved 1986 penny with an error could fetch anywhere from $10 to $100, depending on the severity and type of error. More extreme examples of error coins can sometimes be sold for even higher amounts. Even though most 1986 pennies are worth 1 cent, their historical and numismatic significance gives them a unique place in coin collecting. If you're someone who enjoys collecting pennies from different years or looking for specific mint marks, then the 1986 penny can still be a valuable addition to your collection, especially when considering the general inflation of the coin's production over the years. While pennies may not seem like much in today's world, when you consider the billions of them still in circulation, the value of these coins as a whole is enormous. In fact, if you were to gather up all the 1986 pennies currently circulating, their total face value would be well into the millions of dollars. So, should you be holding on to your 1986 pennies? If you're a collector, it could be worthwhile to keep them, especially if they're in pristine condition or show any interesting errors. But for the average person, it's unlikely that your 1986 penny will bring you big financial gains. However, as a piece of American history, the 1986 penny holds a certain charm. It's a reminder of a time when the penny was the smallest unit of currency in circulation, and a symbol of Abraham Lincoln's enduring legacy in the U.S. If you happen to have a few 1986 pennies, don't just toss them aside. They may not be worth much now, but they certainly have historical value. And that wraps up our deep dive into the 1986 1-cent coin. While it may not be a rare or highly valuable coin in its standard form, it's certainly an important piece of American history. Whether you're a coin collector or just someone interested in learning more about U.S. currency, the 1986 penny is a great coin to have in your collection. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos on the history and value of U.S. coins. Don't forget to hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Happy collecting, and remember, your next valuable coin might be waiting in your pocket change. This script offers an engaging and thorough breakdown of the 1986 1-cent coin, providing both historical context and insights into its value in circulation. It's perfect for educating a wide range of viewers, from casual enthusiasts to seasoned collectors. While pennies might seem small in value, there's a lot more to them than meets the eye, especially when you start looking closely at the history and production behind each one. In this video, we'll cover the 1991 D penny's history, value, and the interesting facts that could make it worth more than you think. Most of us are familiar with pennies. After all, they're one of the most common forms of currency in the U.S. But not all pennies are created equal. Whether you're a seasoned collector or you've just come across a 1991 D penny in your pocket change, you might be wondering, is this coin special? Is there something valuable hidden in this humble little penny? Let's find out together. The 1991 D 1-cent coin, produced by the Denver Mint, was minted during a period of stability for U.S. currency. By the early 1990s, the U.S. Mint had already transitioned to the modern penny composition of 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper, which began in 1982. This was a necessary change due to rising copper prices, and it marked the beginning of a new era for the penny. By 1991, this composition of zinc with a thin copper plating had become the standard for the US penny. In fact, it's the same composition that's used in pennies today, though the debate about whether or not we should even have pennies continues. During 1991, over 7.5 billion 1-cent coins were minted, a staggering number, making the 1991 D-penny one of the most widely circulated coins of that year. But it wasn't just the volume of production that makes the 1991 D-penny important. This penny was minted at a time when the U.S. economy was seeing significant changes. Above Lincoln, you'll see the word liberty, with the phrase "In God We Trust" on the right side of the coin. The date 1991 is located just below Lincoln's bust, and all of these elements have been consistent throughout the years. Now, while the design of the 1991 D-penny is similar to other years, it's worth noting that the Lincoln Memorial reverse design would remain on the penny until 2008. In 2009, the U.S. Mint introduced a series of designs to commemorate Lincoln's bicentennial. While it's not particularly rare or valuable in its regular form, the 1991 D-penny holds an important place in American currency. As far as circulation is concerned, these pennies are still everywhere. You're likely to come across one at some point in your daily life. But what about its value for collectors? Well, despite the sheer volume of production, some of these pennies can still hold special significance for people building collections or looking for coins in certain conditions. Here's where things get interesting. While most 1991 D-pennies are worth only their face value, there are a few varieties and eras that collectors will pay a premium for. Let's take a look at a few notable eras you might come across in the 1991 D-penny. One of the most common errors seen in 1991 D-pennies is the struck-through error. This occurs when debris or foreign objects, like dirt or metal shavings, get stuck in the minting press, causing marks or flaws to appear on the coin. These can sometimes add a bit of value for collectors, as they are considered a form of minting imperfection. Another error that occasionally shows up in the 1991 D-penny is the off-center strike. This happens when the coin isn't properly aligned during the minting process, causing part of the design to be cut off or off-center. Off-center strikes are a bit rarer but are highly valued by collectors for their unique look. Additionally, you might find coins that have been double-struck, where the coin is struck twice, leading to a slight doubling of some of the details. Double-struck 1991 D-pennies can be worth anywhere from $50 to a few $100 depending on their severity and condition. While error coins like these are relatively rare, they can be worth a lot more than face value, especially if they're in good condition and show a distinct error. Now, let's talk about the total value of the 1991 D-penny in circulation. With over 7.5 billion of these coins minted in 1991 alone, the total face value of all 1991 D-pennies is a little over $75 million. That's a lot of pennies, but most of them are still circulating as regular, everyday currency. Of course, most 1991 D-pennies won't fetch anything above 1 cent in value. However, when you think about the sheer volume of these coins, it's clear that they still play a significant role in U.S. currency, even though they may not be worth much individually. While pennies like the 1991 D aren't going to make anyone a fortune, they still hold some historical and numismatic significance, especially for collectors who are building a complete set of coins from the 1990s or looking for specific mint marks and dates. However, if you come across a 1991 D-penny with a noticeable error, like a double strike or off-center design, it might be worth your time to hang on to it. Those error coins could be valuable to collectors down the road. And that wraps up our deep dive into the 1991 D 1-cent coin. While most of these pennies are worth just 1 cent, there's still a lot of value in learning about them and keeping an eye out for those special error varieties. Whether you're a collector or just curious about U.S. coins, the 1991 D-penny is a great piece of American history. Covers historical context, production details, value, error coins, and the coin's overall significance, providing an all-encompassing view of the penny for numismatists and curious viewers alike. Welcome back to our channel, Coins Liberty, where we dive into fascinating facts about money, history, and the incredible stories behind the coins we use every day. Today, we're talking about one of the smallest, yet most intriguing coins in circulation, the US 1-cent coin. Yes, the penny, that little coin with a big history. Stick around as we explore its journey through time, its value, and the surprising stories that make it worth so much more than you might think. Let's kick things off by diving into the history of the 1-cent coin. The story of the penny goes all the way back to the beginnings of the United States, right after the nation's founding. Let's talk about the most iconic pennies that we all know today. The first major redesign of the penny came in 1859 with the creation of the Indian head cent. This design featured a Native American profile and was used until 1909. But it was the next redesign that really solidified the penny as we know it today. In 1909, to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, the U.S. Mint released the Lincoln cent. The reverse of the coin showed 2 stalks of wheat, which became known as the wheat penny. This was an important moment in U.S. coin history, as it marked the first time a real person's image, President Abraham Lincoln, appeared on a U.S. coin. This design would be used for decades, from 1909 all the way to 1958. Then, in 1959, to mark the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, the U.S. Mint introduced the Lincoln Memorial Reverse, which showed the famous memorial in Washington, D.C. This design lasted until 2009 when the Mint decided to release several commemorative designs in honor of Lincoln's life, including the log cabin, the formative years, the Gettysburg Address, and more. So, what's the 1-cent coin worth today? Well, the answer is complicated because the value of a penny isn't just about its face value. As of today, the penny is still in circulation, but it has lost much of its purchasing power over time. When the penny was first introduced, it could buy a lot more than it can today. In fact, thanks to inflation, the value of a penny has significantly decreased. In 1793, a penny could buy what would be worth a few dollars today. Fast forward to the present, and while a penny might not be able to buy much, it still holds its place in modern currency systems. But here's an interesting fact. Did you know that it actually costs more to make a penny than it's worth? That's right. As of recent years, it costs the U.S. Mint about 1.5 to 2 cents to produce just 1 penny. With rising costs for materials like zinc and copper, producing pennies has become an expensive endeavor for the U.S. government. In fact, this has sparked debates about whether the penny should be discontinued altogether. Many people argue that the penny no longer serves a useful purpose, while others argue that it holds sentimental and historical value. Now, while the penny may not have a huge purchasing power today, the coin can actually be worth much more to collectors. Some rare pennies, especially those with errors or unusual characteristics, can fetch a pretty penny, pun intended. Then, there's the 1909 SVDB Lincoln cent. This penny, with the initials VDB on the reverse, is one of the most sought-after coins by collectors. It's estimated that a good quality example can be worth anywhere from several thousand to tens of thousands of dollars, depending on its condition. So, what does the future hold for the penny? While there's ongoing debate about whether we should keep minting pennies, one thing is clear: the penny's historical and collector value is undeniable. Some people believe that, in the future, the penny will be phased out, while others argue that it will continue to hold a place in our hearts and wallets for years to come. In conclusion, the 1-cent coin has come a long way since its introduction in 1793, from its humble beginnings to being one of the most iconic coins in American history. It might not be worth much today in terms of purchasing power, but the penny's value as a historical artifact and as a collector's item is immense. So, the next time you come across a penny, remember that there's more to this little coin than meets the eye. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more fascinating facts about the world of money. And tell us in the comments, do you think the penny should stay, or should it be gone for good? Let us know your thoughts. Until next time, keep collecting, and keep exploring. Sure! Below is a detailed script for a YouTube video on the 1-cent coin, including its history, value, and some of the rare, high-value 1-cent coins. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're diving into the fascinating world of 1-cent coins, those tiny bits of metal that are often tossed aside, but have a surprisingly rich history and, believe it or not, some serious value in the right circumstances. So, grab your magnifying glasses, because we're going to take a deep dive into the history, the value, and the rare finds of the 1-cent coin. Let's get started. Let's start with the basics. The 1-cent coin, also known as the penny, has been around for centuries. The first penny was introduced by the U.S. government in 1793, making it one of the oldest coins still in circulation today. At that time, it was made of copper and bore a design that symbolized liberty. The design featured a bust of Lady Liberty on the front, with an inscription that read Liberty, parent of science and industry. But of course, the penny we know today looks a lot different. Over the years, the 1-cent coin has gone through many design changes, adjustments in size, and changes in metal content. Let's take a quick tour of some of the most iconic versions of the penny. The first major redesign of the penny came in 1909, when President Abraham Lincoln was chosen to appear on the front of the coin to celebrate his 100th birthday. That design, known as the Lincoln wheat penny, remained in circulation until 1958. These wheat pennies were made of 95% copper, with the reverse side featuring two stalks of wheat, symbolizing America's agricultural roots. It's not just a historical relic, collectors love them. Some of the early years of the Lincoln wheat penny, especially the 1909 SVDB, are highly sought after, and they can be worth a pretty penny, if you know where to look. In 1959, the Lincoln wheat penny was replaced with the Lincoln Memorial penny to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. This new design, featuring the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse side, would remain the standard design until 2008. Then, in 2009, to mark the 200th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, the U.S. Mint issued a series of special edition pennies, with 4 different reverse designs showing important moments in Lincoln's life. The final redesign, which we see today, shows a portrait of Lincoln on the obverse, with a shield and the inscription E pluribus unum on the reverse. Now, when we think of a 1-cent coin today, it might not seem like much. After all, you can't even buy a stick of gum with it anymore. But the value of a penny can be a lot more than just its face value. While most pennies in circulation today are worth exactly 1 cent, there are rare pennies that can be worth thousands or even millions of dollars. Sounds crazy, right? But it's true. Let's talk about some of these rare finds. First, there's the famous 1943 copper penny. During World War II, the U.S. Mint switched from using copper to steel to make pennies, so that copper could be used for ammunition. However, a few copper pennies were accidentally struck that year, and those coins are now worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. One of these rare pennies was sold at auction for over $1 million. Yes, you heard that right. So, the next time you find a penny lying around, you might want to check it carefully. Another highly valuable coin is the 1909 SVDB Lincoln wheat penny. The S represents the mint mark from San Francisco, and the VDB stands for the designer's initials, Victor David Brenner. The 1909 SVDB penny is incredibly rare, with only about 484,000 of them struck, and it can fetch upwards of $1,500 in mint condition. So, why do people collect these pennies? Well, many collectors are drawn to the historical significance of the 1-cent coin. It represents the story of America, from its humble beginnings to modern times. Each penny tells a little piece of the country's history. And then, of course, there's the thrill of the hunt. Whether it's searching through rolls of pennies for that elusive rare coin or discovering a hidden gem at a flea market, coin collecting is an exciting hobby. Now, let's talk about something that's been a hot topic for years. Should we get rid of the penny altogether? Some argue that the cost of production for a penny is more than its face value, especially when it comes to the cost of materials and minting. Some countries, like Canada, have already phased out their 1-cent coin. But here in the US, the penny still remains in circulation, despite some calling for its removal. So, the 1-cent coin might not be as valuable as it once was, but it still holds a lot of historical and monetary value, especially when you consider the rare ones. Whether you're a collector or just curious about the history of coins, there's no denying that the penny has left its mark on the world, and some of those pennies are definitely worth more than just their face value. Now, the next time you spot a penny on the ground, you might want to pick it up. You never know, it could be the one that makes you a fortune. Thanks for tuning in, and if you enjoyed this deep dive into the history and value of the 1-cent coin, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments if you've ever found a rare penny yourself. Until next time, keep on collecting, and I'll see you in the next video.
Let me go back to what happened in the Oval Office the other day. I call it a smackdown of Zelensky. It looked really rough, but then again at the end of the day you may have your deal back. So was that all the art of the deal? What specifically ticked you off? Well, you know, he was able to. It was like taking candy from a baby. What he died's a smart guy, and he's a tough guy, and he took money out of this country under Biden like candy. From Ababy it was so easy with that samey attitude, and I just don't think he's grateful. We gave him, in my opinion, $350 billion. Europe is in for $100 billion. We gave him $350 billion, and he's talking about the fact that they have fought and there's a bravery because somebody has to use the weapons. But without those weapons, don't forget I was the one that gave him the javelins that was able to knock down all the ties. Obama gave nothing. Look, if I were president that would have never happened. Russia, and we're in there for $350 billion. Biden should have never done that. I spoke with the president of Poland the other day. President Duda has great respect for you, and I said to him, you know what, if the US walks away and stays away, here's what he said: without the United States, do you believe that Europe is capable of offering meaningful security to Ukraine? I would like to believe it, but experience to date shows that this has not been the case. The entire history so far of the last 3 years of the war shows that without American support, Ukraine will not survive. Are you comfortable with that? The fact that you walked away and Ukraine may not survive? Well, it may not survive anyway, but you know we have some weaknesses with Russia. You know it takes two. Look, it was not going to happen, that war, and it happened, so now we're stuck with this mess. Think of what he stuck me with: open borders, where we have 21 million people came into our country, many of whom should not be here. Many are criminals, many are criminals, many murderers, drug dealers, drug lords. We got that. We have the whole mess with Israel on October 7th. We have all of the ramifications from the worst and dumbest withdrawal in history. Both Ukraine and Israel were both attacked by aggressors. Is America treating both countries similarly? Are they treating the aggressors similarly? I think so. Look, are you favoring one over the other? Theory: very different places. Okay, very, very different. You're talking about different levels of power. You're talking about different parts of the world.
The U.S. Mint was established under the Coinage Act of 1792, which authorized the creation of the first official U.S. coins. Among those was the copper cent, which would eventually evolve into what we call the penny today. The original cent was made of pure copper and featured a representation of Lady Liberty. The first penny was relatively large, weighing over 13 grams. It was quite a bit bigger than the modern penny we know today. Fast forward to 1856, and the U.S. Mint introduced the first official design of the modern penny. This penny featured a shield on the reverse side and was made of a copper-nickel alloy. It wasn't until 1909 that we saw the most iconic penny design of all, the Lincoln cent. In 1909, the U.S. Mint honored the 16th President of the United States, Abraham Lincoln, by featuring his portrait on the obverse of the penny. This was the first time a U.S. coin featured a real person instead of a symbol. On the reverse, the coin displayed 2 wheat ears, which is why it's often called the wheat penny. Throughout the decades, the penny has gone through several redesigns, but it has always remained a constant in U.S. currency. Today, we see the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse side, a design that's been in use since 1959. Now that we know a bit about the penny's rich history, let's talk about its value. The penny is the lowest denomination of U.S. currency and has a value of just 1 cent, or 1 cent. But despite its small value, it has a fascinating economic story. 1 cent might not seem like much today, but back in the early 1900s, it was worth a lot more. For example, in 1913, 1 penny could buy you a loaf of bread. With inflation, the purchasing power of a penny has decreased drastically, which brings us to an interesting point: the cost of producing the penny itself. In recent years, the cost to produce a penny has actually exceeded its face value. In fact, as of 2023, it costs the US government approximately 2.1 cents to make just one penny. That means for every penny minted, taxpayers are losing money. Why, then, does the US Mint keep producing pennies? Well, it's partly due to tradition, and partly because the penny still plays an important role in everyday transactions, even if it costs more to make than it's worth. While a penny might not seem like it's worth much, the total number of pennies in circulation is absolutely mind-blowing. So, let's dive into the numbers. As of 2025, there are more than 150 billion pennies in circulation in the United States. That's right, 150 billion. These pennies have a combined face value of roughly $1.5 billion. But if you look closely, the true worth of these pennies can be much more. Collectors have long been interested in rare pennies, and some of these coins are worth a lot more than just 1 cent. For example, the 1943 copper penny is one of the most famous rare pennies in history. During World War II, pennies were made from steel rather than copper due to copper shortages. However, a few copper pennies were accidentally struck in 1943, and today, these rare coins can be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. Another famous example is the 1909 SVDB Lincoln cent. This penny, which features the initials of the engraver, Victor David Brenner, on the reverse side, is highly sought after by collectors. It can be worth anywhere from several hundred to several $1,000s depending on its condition. Pennies from certain years, especially those with rare minting errors, can fetch high prices in the numismatic market. Some pennies, in pristine condition, are worth far more than you might expect. Now you might be wondering, what does the future hold for the penny? Will it continue to be minted, or will it one day be phased out entirely? There have been ongoing discussions about whether the penny should be eliminated, especially given its rising production costs. Some argue that the penny is no longer needed, while others believe it still serves an important role in our economy and daily lives. As of now, the penny remains a part of US currency, but its future remains uncertain. Would we really miss it if it were gone? That's a debate for another day. So, there you have it, a quick dive into the history, value, and surprising worth of the US 1 cent coin. From its humble beginnings in the 1790s to its role in today's economy, the penny may be small, but it's certainly not insignificant. Do you think the penny should continue to be minted, or should we bid farewell to it? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this video interesting, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more deep dives into the fascinating world of currency. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. To truly appreciate the 1933 1 cent coin, we need to understand the historical context in which it was minted. The year 1933 was a turbulent time in U.S. history. The country was in the midst of the Great Depression, an economic crisis that started in 1929 and affected millions of Americans. The effects of this depression were felt across all sectors, including the coinage industry. Now, the 1933 penny is part of the Lincoln Wheat Cent series, which was first introduced in 1909. This series featured a design with President Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and 2 stalks of wheat on the reverse, symbolizing the country's agriculture and prosperity. The wheat cent was a major departure from previous designs and became one of the most beloved and widely circulated coins in U.S. history. But the 1933 penny wasn't just another coin. During this time, the U.S. was also going through significant changes in the minting process, especially due to the economic hardships of the Great Depression. The value of the penny was more critical than ever, with people holding on to their small change as a way to weather the financial storm. In fact, the production of pennies increased during this time to ensure there was enough currency in circulation. The 1933 penny, like other coins minted that year, was made of 95% copper and 5% zinc. However, one thing sets the 1933 penny apart from most other coins from the era. It's considered to be one of the last years for the wheat cent before the design was replaced in 1959. The 1933 penny marks the end of an era, a transition period both in U.S. coinage and American history. The 1933 1-cent coin features a design that many of us recognize today. On the obverse, you'll find a portrait of Abraham Lincoln, which has been featured on the penny since 1909. This design was created by sculptor Victor David Brenner, and it remains one of the most iconic images in American numismatics. On the reverse, you'll see two stalks of wheat, which have been a hallmark of the wheat cent design. This reverse was designed by engraver John R. Sinek and was meant to symbolize the agricultural heritage of the United States. Together, these two sides of the coin reflect the nation's respect for Lincoln's legacy and its agrarian roots. Now, there's something very important to note about the 1933 penny. The coin's condition can significantly affect its value. Over the decades, many of these pennies were heavily circulated, meaning they may show signs of wear and tear, including fading of the wheat stalks and Lincoln's portrait. However, coins in excellent condition can be quite valuable. However, the value of the 1933 penny can skyrocket if it's in good condition or has some unique characteristics. Let's break it down by coin condition. For example, a 1933 penny in good condition, meaning it has seen some wear but is still legible, might only fetch a few dollars. But if you happen to have a 1933 penny in fine condition, one where the details are more distinct, but it still shows some signs of wear, you could be looking at a value of $5 to $10. But the real jackpot comes when you find a 1933 penny in near mint or mint state condition. A coin in pristine condition, with no signs of wear and all the details crisp and clear, can be worth hundreds of dollars, or even more. In fact, a 1933 Lincoln wheat cent in uncirculated condition can be worth anywhere from $200 to $500, depending on the market and demand. Now, if you think your 1933 penny could be valuable, you might want to get it graded. Coin grading services like the Professional Coin Grading Service, PCGS, or Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, NGC, can authenticate your coin and give it a grade. Higher grade coins typically command higher prices, especially in the case of rare or near-perfect specimens. Now, here's where things get really interesting. While most 1933 pennies aren't particularly rare, there's one specific type of 1933 penny that has garnered significant attention among collectors and historians, and that's the 1933 double-die penny. Some 1933 pennies were struck with a double-die error, meaning the die used to mint the coin was misaligned. This resulted in a visible double image on the coin. The most common areas to find the double die are on the date and the lettering, particularly around the word liberty, or the motto "In God We Trust." These double die error coins are incredibly rare, and if you're lucky enough to find one, you could be holding onto a coin worth thousands of dollars. In fact, well-preserved 1933 double die error pennies can sell for $1,000 or more, and sometimes even much higher at auction. One such 1933 double die error penny recently sold for over $10,000. Making it one of the most sought-after coins in the Lincoln wheat cent series. If you think you've found one of these error coins, be sure to have it evaluated by a professional. The 1933 1-cent coin may not have been the most famous or the most valuable penny in history, but it certainly holds a special place in the hearts of collectors. As the decades have gone by, the 1933 penny has become a symbol of an era, a time of economic hardship, resilience, and change in the United States. While most 1933 pennies will likely remain common collector's items worth only a few dollars, those that are well preserved or feature rare errors could continue to rise in value, especially as interest in rare coins grows over time. So, if you're a collector, or even just someone who loves digging through old change, make sure to keep an eye out for the 1933 1-cent coin.